Again, that number is 702-589-9692 for comments relating to 29, sorry, so 702-589-9629. Thanks for the correction. And it's just related to the items on this agenda for action. I'm not hearing any on the phone. Josh, was there anything sent in or written in?
No, I didn't receive anything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the audience that would like to speak? Okay, so I guess we will close the comment period and go to the first agenda item. So the first agenda item is possible action, approval of September 1st, 2021 Utility Advisory Committee meeting and minutes. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes?
I move they be approved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So, okay, so minutes are approved. So we'll go to the next agenda item. So for possible action, discussion and review of ongoing and 5-year capital improvement plan. Okay, Carol, you want to start off? Help us out?
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? I'm short, I have to adjust this down a little bit. Okay. So, I think a main goal today is going to be to look at the CIP. I did, Josh and Marvis and I did work on an extra, a new form.
Which one though? I don't know what.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
says
okay.
Marvis's name, sorry.
Gotcha. Well, there's so many of them.
Which is gonna, which is gonna be electric. And I think my goal for today would be to actually look at the timing on the projects and adjust the CIP for 23 through 27. Not only for make sure we have the projects in there, but also the timing of what year each one needs to be funded. So
the water, we're just going back to the revisions and then making comments from the last year's revision. Is that for the water?
correct.
Okay.
And since this is actually a meeting, I'll take notes, and this would be where I can make the changes.
That would be great. Okay, so how would you like to start?
I would like to start with electric, unless you guys want to start with the other ones first.
No, that's great. Do you mind going down line by line since we have the time today?
I don't mind.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so on the open projects, because it does change the timing of the future projects, on E1901, I'll just start right at the top. What I would like to do is close E2010, the Claremont conversion, and those funds because that work is actually done, and move those funds to E1901, which would be the feeder 63 to substation 3 tie, since virtually that's the same, it's a continuation of the same portion. So, and then I would also like to close E1902, move those funds to E2101, which is the same instance. That portion is done, and the other project is a continuation of the same thing. So I feel like by closing those two projects and moving the money, that'll clean up the CIP report to show that that portion's done.
So on feeder one, so it's been so 153. Well, actually, you've got just a little bit over, not quite 160,000 has been spent so far. So is that because that's been what's been done so far in design, or because that's since you only got 400,000 in the project, that's a reasonable amount of money with nothing showing for what's been done yet.
You said feeder one, which project?
I'm sorry, I say feeder 63 to so it's the very first one, feeder 63 to substation 1. Okay, so I guess I better watch my numbers today.
Could I get a clarification, Marvis? You might know, feeder 63, is that the overhead line on the new transmission poles that you've built?
No, that's not. Feeder 63 is the feeder that is coming up Nevada Way to the pork chop at Avenue I. And it's overhead and underground right there.
Okay.
The new underbuild on the 69 kV is going to be feeder 65.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yes.
all right. So this underground, is it coming through Claremont and then up Avenue I, or?
No, the underground that is in Claremont is already on the 63, and it was a combination dual project in the first place, because 63 ends up being, the Claremont ends up being a part of the 63.
Right.
So that money that was allocated for Claremont is actually still part of the 63 reconductor.
Okay.
And then the reconductor will continue on Avenue I to Arizona. And then it'll hit the overhead there at the alley between Arizona and K, I believe that is.
Okay.
And,
all right.
Yeah.
So the 63, how does 63 get there from substation 6, get up to Avenue I again? You can just refresh my memory.
How does 63?
Yes,
63 is already in service. It's underground feeder on we'll go ahead and call it the north side of the 93.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And it
Okay.
crosses over at Tuscany, and again at Lake Mountain.
Okay, so
By
physically what needs to be done, just so I can get it in my mind again?
Okay. Physically, what needs to be done is the continuation of the conduit install and cable along Avenue I from Avenue I and Nevada at Claremont. That's
Okay.
where the feeder currently stops right now.
All right, okay.
We need to do the work from that intersection down Avenue I and tie into the overhead on Arizona and Avenue I right there.
Okay, got
In
it.
the alley right there. And that will continue down Wyoming, which is already in place. We've already re-insulated that top circuit, which will be the 63. It used to be circuit 14 or 12 or something like that, but it's already been re-insulated for 15 kV. And then we will continue with an underground dip at, I believe the street is Cuyahoga, down to Substation 3.
Okay,
So that is the 63, yes.
all right, got it. Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
So to answer Larry's question, that 400,000 was originally allocated to do design and to begin the construction. And obviously, that won't be enough to do what we need to do, but that is what that was originally allocated to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I'm being picky, and I'm getting in your business, and I apologize. When I see that there's zero, the last one we have with percentages of completion, I see that there was 0% complete, and we've got $150,000 spent. So that's why I was asking what
Well,
that
and
seems
that's,
like.
again, that's been because of design, it's an in-house design. So we've been using in-house drafter to do that, Mr. Mike, and they've also done sampling, core sampling and things of that nature. So that has taken up that, a portion of that. So.
Okay, so the in-house design has been started. So,
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
that's-
Yes, it's well underway,
That's
yes.
where I was confused on. I
Yes.
apologize. Thank you.
Yes. No, you're
Thank you.
So when we do the percentage on the status report, just keep in mind, that's always construction. That's not, is that where you mean it says zero complete?
Yeah.
Yeah, that status report, the percentage of completion is construction only, that's not design.
Okay, well, maybe we just need to do something during the meeting so we can understand that
Yeah, I
there's a
think
certain percentage done
yeah,
on
I
design
think
of
I put
something.
it up there. Oh, you want a separate percentage of
Well,
what
if we just,
percent
you can just
design
let
is
us
done?
know that, because this says in design, I guess, so, and some of these things, I'm not sure if they're started design or if there's need to go to design. Because a lot of times we've seen it for several months that says in design, but then we haven't heard, I think like the San Felipe and stuff like that.
Okay, to clarify that, if it says in design, it's in design.
Okay.
Now, what percentage, that's what's in question. Because again, these are things that are outside of our purview because we have no control over that. That's an engineering function. They're doing it in-house.
And
So whatever portion is under design, it's on them. We can't dictate. We can only give a priority. So, and again, they only have one person doing this. So anything that says in design has some form of that drawing has already constituted. It has already begun. Now, what phase it's in, that's a different question.
Okay,
But
and
yes.
so I've asked too much, and I apologize. Thank you. That just want to clarify what information is available, and so that's asking too much. It's getting too busy. So I will, in the future, I'll just check and see that it's in, and if there's any new information on how the design is going, that'd be great. If not, then I won't ask the question.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So we also, in the status line, we did include, and I highlighted them in yellow, what priority that Marvis puts and myself as far as for the in-house design. So do you see that highlighted in red or yellow on the side? So that's where we put, if they can, we have one person, he can work on one thing at a time, that's what we'd like the order to go in.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So what I'm gonna, so what'll happen is when you get the report as of September 31st, the projects that I show in green as close will move to the money will move, as I've indicated, to the other projects. You'll see it on your report, those lines to increase, and then you'll see at the bottom of our report, it'll say closed in 2020, fiscal year 22, and those projects that I close will move to the bottom.
I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
Mary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't understand how, if a project is completed and the money was not spent, why it gets moved to another project.
In talking to Marvis and identifying these projects were broken into, in the past, well before us, it was broken into two separate projects. It got to one point, and then the other project was started. We're identifying that this is basically one type, the same project. That's why, to me, we could leave them separate, but to me, in clarity, we would like to actually simplify and put it to those funds to that other project. Because it's the same, like Marvis just explained, we went to Claremont, and now we need to go for, really, it could have been done originally as one project.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to kind of fix that so that we stop having these projects that basically were divided up that probably should have been one.
Okay. But so like one project was actually over budgeted and the other one was under budgeted?
Here's what I'm saying.
No, but I understand.
Yeah,
But are
possibly, I would say that possibly we could have, and this was the past, instead of opening that new project, we could have funded more money if we added to the scope of work. So instead of adding to the scope of work on Claremont, because we decided we were going further, we opened a new project. So to me, the money from Claremont has been sitting there saying that when we get to the end of that other project, we know that that one is going to need more funds. So I would rather move the money now, as we've identified, so that there's not projects on here doing nothing. So that's what I think part of the conversation is today, is to try to do what you, the committee, has asked, and that's to go in, look at these projects, and identify the status and why they're still on there.
Eileen, if it helps, and Carol, if you can clarify for me. So when you close it out, the projects are closed out, you do a closeout procedure, form, or whatever, and you take that to city council, is that correct?
I'm going to find out for sure. Keegan would probably know the answer better to that. I know I want to make sure I'm answering correctly. This is a utility project. It's not a general fund project. So I can find the exact way they do it, and then I'll report back to you guys.
Okay, because last year, there was at least one that was done that way.
Yeah,
There
I
was-
can find out for sure.
Okay, because I think if that help Eileen, because if they're taking it to the council, then they're bringing it up saying that this money is going to be transferred, and basically, I think they're getting the approval from council to move the money, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I'll
what you're
find
gonna
out the exact steps that we'll take on it.
Does that help, Eileen?
Okay, I'm just concerned, it's like, well, we've got this money left, let's add it to another project, and then we can do
Well-
more than what we originally said, and so, but from what you're saying, is that these kind of things in the past, that's not gonna happen
Yeah,
for
it's
current, newer projects.
what I'd like to identify, and exactly what Marvis just said, is it's not like this isn't a project here, and we're taking this money and putting it to a totally different project.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rectify
The past.
exactly.
Okay.
So I agree with you. I don't think we should just haphazardly move money from one project to another. I'm going in, like you've asked, we've looked at every project, and we're going in to clean it up so that it's easier to understand, it's easier. So those are two projects that we identified, and they're ongoing of this, they probably should have been the same project or funded into the same project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Excuse me, I missed where you were taking the E2, 2010. You're gonna close that and move the funds to what project?
It says it over to the right. So the status bar, it says we're closing that balance to E1901, which is the one right above it.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's the one that Marv just explained how the whole thing went. And then the E1902, that one is a continuation of the E2101, which Marvis can explain that one also. It's a similar situation where it got to a certain point, and then we started the other project where it's a continuation of the. Okay, and I also broke down on here, and hoping to make it more understandable, the projects that are related to the 4K to 12K conversion. I tried to put them all in one place and then have the timing for that, because that's been a big issue, has been what order do we need to do these at. So if Marvis has them marked as a 1, that means that those should all be going at the same time in priority.
Yeah, thank you. That's the way you've broken it out, and also the comments, so on the far right must be complete before cutover is very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the other one I want to close is the Substation 5. That is E2011. That one will close. It did come a little bit over budget at the 1,555. That one is final. The final portion that has to be done is labor only in-house. So since there's no further cost, I just want to close that project out. And then the equipment projects on the bottom.
Go ahead, Greg, sorry.
I want to thank you for what you're doing, because what you're doing is you're streamlining the munis numbers as projects, and you're also consolidating the long laundry list of projects open for years and years and years. I understand that once you take and you have one cable feeder coming down a street and it hits another box, a J box or a junction point, then it converts to another circuit. So it's basically a tap and a run. So that's really understood in the electrical side of the house. The thing is, by consolidating these and dropping these munis numbers off, it minimizes our laundry list of outstanding projects. And I thank you both for doing that, all of you.
And then the projects on the bottom, the materials and equipment, I just wanted to put those separate because those are projects, they're not, when we can find that truck we're trying to find, we'll get it, that project will be closed. And the same thing, when the meter replacement, when that final PO goes through, that project will be closed. The pole replacement program, when that project was first done, I really think it was put on with the thought that we funded it like we were going to buy the poles and hire somebody to go and install them. Well, 95% of those poles are part of the cutover. So Marvis is going in and buying the poles out of that project, and the poles, 95% of them are being actually installed during the 4 kV. So in speaking to Marvis, that's why my notes over there say that we can buy the remaining poles and then consider moving the excess of that up to the 4 kV, which is actually where the cost should be. There's no way that we can go in and try to figure out on the 4 kV contract how much to charge to the poles for each time they go in, and that's just, that's not how the contract was originally written. So to me, again, trying to clean up what we're doing, we don't need $770,000 more poles. So that's why the suggestion I'm making to clean that one up as well.
Okay, so you're saying that, so 170K still has to be used to purchase poles, so there's still some poles to purchase, or are they everything? Okay, so we still have some more to go. And then once you've got that done, then you're just gonna charge it to the so if it's not the 4K, it will just be charged to the project that needs that pole.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But we're still, that's our main objective, is to go through, like you've asked, look at every single thing and say, where are we at on that, and where should it actually be?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, just real quick to clarify what Ms. Carroll was saying. As she said in her notes, 95% of our wood poles are in the 4 kV system. So that's the majority of the poles that are currently being replaced by our contractor as we do the work to prepare for the cutover, the insulation repair, upgrade our cross arms, and when poles are deemed, and we do have our list from our drone study, and we are using that also to pinpoint what poles need to be immediately replaced, which ones will be down the line. So in conjunction with that, it's just easy because PAR is here, our contract, is here doing that work as well already. It only makes sense to allow them to do that without trying to create a whole new project, which I think when this first got started, that's kind of what happened, but it shouldn't have done that. But this will clean that up, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
I got a question on the meters. We had talked at one of the meetings about that, I thought, shifting into a commercial phase. So is that gonna be on maintenance? Is that gonna be another capital project brought in later, or what am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, that's probably gonna be another capital project later, because this project was originally, for the most part, our residential meters, this project here, but because we had some left over, we delved into some of the three-phase and the instrument rated. So we've made our final purchase. So this money is actually already encumbered. So we'll be probably going for a new CIP somewhere down the road to address everything else that's three-phase and commercial.
So do we need to put a placeholder in, because is that something you probably want to do in the next 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be in the next 5 years, but that's something we're gonna have to sit down and dissect and to see what direction we want to go, because we do have three-phase meters that are in our residential area that we need to attack. The lava courts in that area down there off of Temple Rock, we have a lot of three-phase services there that we need to attack. So yeah, we just need to sit down and decide what direction we want to go. So we can put a pin in that one and probably project to do that for the future within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, just to, and then maybe that's what we can clarify on some of these things. Some
Yes.
of them are just, we know it's gotta be done, we're not sure exactly what year it's gonna
Right.
be in. And some of these have to be done in this year, so maybe we can clarify that
Yes, sir.
as we go on too.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
We can purchase those meters and CTs ahead of time, can't we?
Yeah, we are doing that.
Okay, so I'm saying it just, anytime we have a little surplus money, we ought to
Yeah.
slide some in that direction.
And that's what that's what we were doing with this leftover here. That's exactly what we did, yes.
The only problem I have with consolidating back to what we were talking about, the mile-high drone study and the pole replacement, the reason it was separated out is we wanted to get a feel for what it was gonna cost to replace a 12 kV pole, okay? And the problem is, by consolidating that, we just gave Power Electric another pot of money to charge labor to. And I don't feel no, it's a T&M job, I know it is. It's not bid, because I've never seen a bid slide across the table. So it's all T&M. So when we do that, now we've increased the pot of labor money to them, and we've already bought the poles. And I want to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck.
And as we are getting the most bang for the buck, because I don't have the people to do it. So what is
Well,
somebody gonna do?
I know, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, if we got a pole replacement program, is there anybody else we can go out and ask for a rough quote? I need some competition, because I was given a very flippant answer the other day. We've been here for 20 years and we're gonna be here for 20 more. That was from a Power Electric employee. And I go, oh, that's not the right way to be talking, buddy. You know, I don't like that kind of attitude from an employee or a supervisor of the employees of Power Electric. They didn't know who I was, Marvis. But the problem is, when I get an attitude like that, they've got a hook in us. We're a big mouth bass, pay go, and they like it. Because like I said, they're just getting money after money after money after money. And I know we don't have anybody, and we've got to work on that. And as of our last workshop, our attorney of record gave us a different title, okay, in broad parentheses by the person up in Carson City. So that gives us a whole different avenue to go down. And that's something we're going to be discussing later, because I can't get off track on what the topics are. We're doing the capital projects. Like I said, I love consolidating the muni numbers, but the one that's down here for meter replacement, that one should stay open. And we should add more money to that number, because it's still going to fall under meter replacement. The title does not change. It's just a renewal of funds in a capital program or project year on down the road. We just have to figure out which one it is.
And we don't have a problem with that. That's what we just said. We can put a pin in that and
Right.
keep it open if we need to. But at this time, there will be no more money in it right now. We'll revisit that once we get a new plan of attack.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel we ought to do. Thank you.
Yep.
So I guess my question is, I've been in the direction of getting these closed because you guys didn't want old projects on there. So are you telling me not to close that project? Because it could be sitting there.
Well, it's like back in the old days, when I used to have to write a RMS, request for material or services, there was a cost attached to that. to go out and write the paperwork, go to purchasing, get the material and everything else. If the title meter replacement, which is what we're talking about, three-phase commercial and instrument metering, it has to be purchased in '23, that's something we're gonna have to talk about in our 5-year capital plan discussion.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking now, is that something you want to put on the CIP for this year?
Because we're gonna talk about the capital CIP plan for 5 years, my answer right now is stick a pin in it, yes.
Okay. I guess my question is what year and how much money am I putting in there?
Well, like we discussed 7 days ago, when my document was not in the paperwork and everything was messed around, we now have to go through and figure out what's gonna happen in '23, '24, '25, '26, '27. That's what we're gonna talk about in the next topic.
No, I think that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, we could talk about that now because it's all the same agenda item.
It's all the same item.
Ongoing and 5-year.
So Greg, just to remind you, there is a difference, and so I think that's what Carol's trying to confirm, if I'm understanding correctly, is this whether we keep it open or whether we either move it or figure out how to do it. Because if we keep it open, you won't see it on the you won't see it on the 5-year plan. There'll be nothing on there.
Correct. To me, we close this one out because that's what we're trying to do, is close out the old projects so we're not constantly being asked why they're there, and put it on the 5-year plan as a new project funded for the right amount of money in what we're doing. And possibly give it a new name, 3-phase meters, or be more, that's all I'm saying, is
Yeah.
let's put it on the 5-year plan for what it is, when and how much.
All right, well, the reason I'm asking the question, I might be getting a little abrasive to everybody, but on my 5-year capital plan from '20 through to '26, there's no meters on this plan.
Okay,
So now all of a sudden, we've got meters on the plan we're looking at, the CIP dated 8/31/21. Okay, and on the one that you sat with, Josh, and we sat in that conference room with everybody, we talked about this. This spreadsheet got all fixed up, but nowhere on this spreadsheet, utility CIP 22 through 26 are meter replacements. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. It came in as a UAE 183. I've got nothing like that in all past documents. So how can it be in 21-22 budget when it's not on 21-22's capital plan?
that wouldn't be on that capital plan because that project was funded clear back in 18. Or it was prior funded.
Well,
that's what she was trying, that's what we were just trying to say, is by leaving this open, if we just spend the money and leave it open.
It's all gone, the money's gone.
It's not going to show on our plan. So
Right.
wouldn't it be cleaner to close that project and put it for new funding on our new plan? Because the reason it wasn't on your plan is because it was already funded and it was open. It's not going to show up on your plan. That's what we want to get away from. If we're saying we need 3-phase meters, put it on the CIP. And I'm not going to argue about what was the past, or I'm just saying, let's go forward. What do you want me to put on the CIP? What do you want me to put for meters?
I agree with that in its entirety, but the problem is I've got CIPs going back 10 years. I've got the 10-year CIP plan in my folder. I've got the 5-year CIP plan in my folder starting from 2018 all the way to present. And what I'm saying is I hear what you're saying. We're all new to this, but we've got to clean it up, and that's what you're trying to do, and I agree. So the thing is, meter replacement is a very broad scope. If we want to narrow the scope, start a new number, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to do a new project, tell me what year, give me the title, and we'll put it in the plan. And how much.
Okay, so yeah, we want to help you with that. We don't want to dictate the year. We're just trying to help.
It's fine.
Help with that. So that's one thing. So as we go through, then that's what we'll try to do is just, but I think that's one thing we are confused. I think we're getting on board better between what's ongoing and what's in the 5-year plan and how we track it. So as we go through it, then maybe at the end, we can just make sure that we'll understand where we'll see everything.
Okay.
And then there'll be less confusion, hopefully. Thank you.
So this meter project will be closed when you get your next report.
Okay.
And I will put a note in to make sure that, I'll meet with Marvis and Keegan, and we will make sure it's in the 5-year plan.
Yeah, maybe today let's put a pin in it today so we can put it down and put it in one of the years, either
Yep.
next year or something like that, and just say and then we'll go from there. That way, at least we all understand where the general idea is.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
The other one, E1907, the substation improvements. And speaking to Marvis, we're going to go ahead and close that one. I won't move that money anywhere. It just shows available in the general fund because it'll be completed with the substation rebuilds. So there's no reason to keep that money sitting there.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
E1907, substation improvements, and I put it in the status. It shows closed, will be completed with the substation rebuild. So in reviewing that project, to just leave it sitting there, when we go in to rebuild the substations, it's gonna do the same thing. So there's no reason to have that sitting there. And since this is a utility fund, we do not transfer the money into a certain CIP, so it just we'll close that out, it moves to the bottom, and that's less money that's gonna show needs to be spent for CIPs and goes into the general fund, or the utility fund.
The general utility fund?
No, I said that wrong. It goes into the fund, the electric fund is where it would go.
Okay, that makes sense. Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, can we go back to the pole replacement program?
Mm-hmm.
Was, when Greg was talking about the contractor, this was what he was referring to, right? Were we talking about kind of two different things at the same time?
I think so.
I got confused. So on the pole replacement, whatever's left here, because we bought the poles, or most of them?
There's a note to the side that says we are talking to Marvis, we're anticipating we haven't made the complete purchase, but he's saying it's not going to be, he doesn't estimate it to be more than like 170. We are trying to identify how much we think that is sitting in there that we don't need in there, but since basically having the poles put in with the 4 kV to 12 kV project, of course, by doing that, it's increasing the scope of work of that project. So it makes sense to identify that we don't need it in this, we don't need $700,000 worth of poles. So identify how much we need in there and move the difference to where the scope of work is actually being done, which is that 4 kV.
For the installation of those
Right.
poles. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, and the reason I really wanted to go through that is because I think going through the priority at the top, especially on the 4 kV, is really important. So now we need to look at the 5-year plan, and we need to identify the projects are there, and also what year that the money is correct and what year it needs to be allocated at.
Carol? So the one thing is, so on the ones that you've got priority 5 on, are you gonna go over that in the 5-year plan? Because those are what looks like they can be moved out. So we'll just sort of switch back and forth between the top and the bottom?
Exactly.
Okay,
So
just
to
making
me, by these projects in the top, the only way they're going to show in our 5-year plan is if we're giving them additional money. So understand that if there's an open project at the top, but we're not giving it any more money in the future, it's not going to show in our 5-year plan because the 5-year plan is new money. It's new funding.
Okay, so if we don't give it any new money, it won't be on the plan, but can we put a note somewhere on the ongoing saying that this is going to be extended out or prior to put out into a different year, some note that shows that we're not just keep on carrying it, we actually plan to do it in a different year?
We can put that on our status report.
Okay.
Yeah, which is exactly why we're doing that priority detail on this side.
No, and I greatly appreciate it. I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we can go back and forth.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I did it the way, that's why we did it the way we did, is because I feel like it's important in order to know where we're going at the bottom.
Yep, no, so
Okay.
thank you.
So I know in our, in the prior meeting, we talked about the timing, and we talked about moving things to other years. I think that's what we need to discuss right now, so that I can actually make the move on the CIP.
That'd be great.
Okay, so do we want to go and this is where Marvis will answer more of the questions as far as the priority that he listed everything for the 5-year plan.
Okay?
Yep. Whenever you're ready.
So keeping in concert where we're at, the 4 kV cutover obviously is the priority to get that stuff done. But keeping in mind that we also have other projects that are outside of the 4 kV. So down at the bottom, if you see some of the 63, 64, those projects like that, say down at the bottom, the E2105 Substation 3 rebuild, which is a project in and of itself, even though it is in concert with the 12 to 4, or the 4 to 12 conversion, it is a project in and of itself because Substation 3 needs to be rebuilt irregardless. So, and that's why that note is there. Even if we stop the conversion right now, which there's no plan to do that, but even if we did stop the conversion right now, we still need to rebuild Substation 3 because it's antiquated. We can't get parts. We can't maintain that substation as it is right now. So it works in concert with the 4 to 12 conversion. However, it is a project in and of itself, whereas even if the 4 kV conversion stopped, we still need to do that. So that's why that priority is where it is. And that's why we have it in 22, 23 as far as in a priority 1. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's it's good. That's good. Now, so as we go through, I'll just make a suggestion. If you want to talk about it more later, let me know.
Yeah, we can
But
do it.
is this a good point to talk about purchases? So we had talked about, purchasing transformers and try to get things in early. So do we try to get something in this year for the purchase of the transformers for the substation? Which if we trying to look at all 6 of them at one time, but
Yes.
Substation 3, I believe, would be your first
Yes.
main transformers.
Yes.
So is that something we try to push for this year, or work the money around a little bit in 23 and 24, and more than just design in 23, we'll make sure that we get them purchased in 23?
Well, from my vantage point, I think that that's something we should start pushing now because of the escalation in pricing and because of how long it's taking. I have some feelers out there, which I haven't done anything official, but I have some feelers out there. We're looking at 36 to 56 weeks turnaround for a transformer. So that being said, those prices will continue to escalate, and that's just from one vendor. Like I said, I haven't did RFQ yet, because until I get to go ahead from obviously your guys and then council, there's nothing we can do about that.
That's why. So I guess the faster we can get going on it, and if we need to do a sub report or something, that's what we're trying to help. I apologize there's been a lot of confusion the last couple of meetings and some of those things, so I apologize for the pushback. So yes, try to go forward and everything as best we can. But we are trying to help. So if we want to we were going to do a report or work with a joint meeting of some type with the council somewhere by December. if there's something that we can do earlier than that to say we need to start looking at it, and maybe the council could get it, you guys could get it on the agenda to say this is something we want to look at, we're happy to help.
And again, I'm separating the other subs out. I'm separating 4 and 5 out. 3, like I just said, absolutely needs to be rebuilt, irregardless. So that is something that, yes, we need to promote. But like I said, Mr. Todd brought the suggestion a meeting or two ago. If we could buy them in bulk, absolutely. But that would be a cheaper cost, obviously. However, manufacturers don't do like that. They want their money as they build. So we may have to separate those out. And if that be the case, yes, we should push for at least a 2 for Substation 3 as soon as possible. Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm just saying, just so we, if we can help, that's just thing.
So yeah, any suggestion from you guys with what we provide? Absolutely. To push at least those 2 going forward for Substation 3 at the very least.
So we would have to figure out how to do it as an ongoing with the, in 22, how to put it in something for 22.
Correct.
Good.
You can't do that.
So if you're looking to do the purchase in 22, that's going to be totally separate from our CIP plan because we're looking at 23 to 25.
Well, for today, well, no, we're looking at ongoing capital. So I guess.
Correct. What we're talking about right now, though, is if we were looking to ask for funding to buy transformers in 22, that isn't part of this 5-year CIP.
But it's
we would have to.
Right, I guess that's what we're trying to say. It's not part of the 5-year plan, but it is part of the ongoing, and it would be something that you would go to city council with.
In a budget amendment.
Correct, but it's doable within a certain month timeframe.
Correct.
So it can be done this fiscal year. We don't have to wait and put it into fiscal year 23.
Correct, but it would not be part of the CIP, which is the agenda we're doing right now. So I recognize that if that was a purchase that you want to make in 22, that's how it would have to be handled.
Okay, so you're saying it's not part of ongoing, so therefore it's not part of the agenda item.
It would be a new request for 22 with a budget amendment.
Okay, so then
It's not ongoing because it's not an open project.
Larry, let's just put it into the next set of discussions.
Well, that's what I was
I
going to
think
say.
that's what we should do, because I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, we're gonna get really caught flat-foot here. We almost have to, we'll find out whatever vehicle's available to us to get this funded if we, whatever it takes to move it. I heard Greg say something about emergency funding and so forth. We should do it, because this is just, I've been involved with cost purchases for other equipment. It's the same thing all over. 56 weeks is terrible, but that's what we're dealing with. So
Right. So
let's make it a next agenda item and let's get it talked about. Like make a high priority of talking about it.
No, thank you, I agree. So we'll push it off, and so just make it, it'll be part of agenda item 3. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. And then if it were to be, when it comes to that, if it were to be something that needed to be added in future years, let's say you were going to do 2 and 22 and you're going to do, or if you don't end up getting a bulk purchase of all 6 of them in 22, then that's something that would go into if we decide to buy more in 23 or more in 24. But it sounded like the last discussion was trying to get the best price now on all 6 of them, which is where you would take it and ask for it to be a budget amendment in 22.
Well, I think since we're doing a initial 5-year plan, then one thing we could look at least is that if we put money in, so that's, we'll be getting back to it once we start talking about 4 and Substation 4 and Substation 5. Then we could say, okay, if we did it as one purchase, that's one thing. If we can't, then let's make sure we get the money for the purchase during the year that we think is most efficient.
Correct.
And then and if we can get it, then we can put it. That's where I think we're all a little confused, is that we're not trying to manipulate everything. It might be that there's 2 or 3 scenarios that are gonna happen. And so if I guess we have to put the one that we think is the most, I guess we only have one choice. We can't put 3 scenarios, we have to put 1. But we might just say, so for instance, let's say we go to the Substation 4 rebuild. Okay, so we want to make sure we get purchased the transformers in '23, and then maybe we have some additional money, just like the mayor says, we spread that out, so maybe that's spread out over 3 years or something like that. And part of it we point as the purchase and something like that. So same thing with 5, we say maybe we do that in '24. So if we get the chance and we purchase everything in '22, then we can revise those, but if we can't get all of them purchased, then we have them pinned in
Yeah.
for money and stuff like that.
And just keep in mind, and I know I sound like a broken record, but all we're asking for this May to be approved is 23. The only thing they're funding and approving is 23. So understand, the rest of the CIP is very fluid. So when we're sitting here next year, we may go in and shift all those 4 years out again. So the things that the 23 is the stuff, is the actual year that the council is approving. So if we decide that that we need to move things around after that, that's not a problem at all.
Correct.
But we want to make sure that what's getting approved and funded in '23 is we want to make sure we're not underfunding those, but we also want to make sure that we're not overfunding them because of not having the capacity to complete all those projects either.
Right, but we're asking, so in December, we're asking the council to approve a 5-year plan. We're asking them to agree that it looks reasonable for this to be done over a 5-year period.
We're presenting a 5-year plan. They are approving to fund 23, 1 year.
But we're still asking, if I understand correctly, we're still asking them to say, this looks, so then are we asking for the time frame to be reasonable?
Yeah.
Because,
Here's my easiest way to explain it. They're going to approve 23. We're giving them a 5-year plan. They're approving funding for 23. Next year, even though they approve, let's say I have a project in '24 that was on the plan this year and they approved it, it won't get funded until they approve that in '24. So just because we present a 5-year plan, they're approving funding for 1 year. That doesn't mean the 4 years after that are able to be funded. It's approved 1 year at a time. 1 year.
okay, it just.
So all I'm saying is we may put something in '24 this year. It doesn't get funded until next year when they approve that year.
No, I understand that. It's just
Yeah.
the way that we're doing a 5-year, we're doing the budget for fiscal year '23, but we're starting off with a 5-year plan, and the 5-year plan was emphasized to us as a 5-year plan, not as a approval for '23. So we're a little confused, I'm sorry. So this is helping, but it hadn't been explained to that in the past. At least I didn't understand that way. Greg?
Real quick, Marvis, let's just take Substation 3 rebuild. It's tentatively scheduled to be funded for construction in '24. So if we go back 52 weeks, we've got to have the transformers delivered by January of '23. Is that correct? That's the way I look at it as an old construction foreman.
January 24, more than likely, not 20. Well,
No.
yeah, this is 21, yes, 23, yes.
Yeah, see, this is why I'm having trouble with this fiscal year versus calendar year versus construction year versus build year versus all this stuff.
Correct.
So in looking at the schedule you and I did back in December of '20 or January of '21 that you and I spent some time working on, it looks like the Substation 3 rebuild, which was supposed to start with engineering in FY '22 and then start construction in FY '23, it got pushed out to design in '23 FY and construction in '24. Okay?
Well,
And that's what caused our spike in the FY '24 tentative calendar or tentative schedule. So now that I have this, I can then recalculate all my schedules and stuff, but I'm saying if you're talking a 52-week build, ours was 24 months. you know, you're talking a year to build a transformer or two.
Well, that's what they're projecting, 36 to 52 weeks.
So what I'm saying is, when do you want it to hit the dirt in Boulder City? We have to go backwards, we have to have money ahead of time to get that transformer ordered and purchased, or at least two of them, ready to build by, it looks like, the beginning of fiscal year 2023, to be delivered by fiscal year 2024, which is when we're supposed to have all the dirt tore up in Substation 3 and be working on rebuilding it.
Correct.
So do we go for an emergency purchase in FY '22 for two transformers?
Yes, if that's the direction that we think we need to go. Yeah.
Well, I think we need to look at that really hard in the next topic, and we need to hit it.
Yeah. Well, I
So
thought
we
Mr.
gotta do emergency purchase in '22. I'd say we bite the bullet and let's get it.
Well, I thought Mr. Howard said we would push this over a minute and talk about it in totality.
Well, I know that for a fact that I got an advance notice of the city council's meeting for October 10th, and they're gonna be talking about the 5-year capital plan. So I wanna make sure that we're all aware that city council's gonna have that on their topic of discussion on October 10th meeting.
Yeah, but again, I guess make sure we're just making sure we're communicating properly. We understand the proper topics, the proper definitions.
Right.
So the definition now they're telling us is that that would not be brought up in the capital plan because it's not a capital plan. But to a certain extent it is, because right now you got 3 million in 2024. That part of that 3 million is the transformers. And so that's got to be shifted. So to a certain extent, you are talking about this capital because that now that has to be reduced, so that money has to be shifted back.
I would not shift that money
Right,
until you got your purchase.
right.
So
Okay, but I guess what we're saying is we still need to, so maybe there needs to be another agenda item for the council meeting to state that we have maybe asking for an emergency purchase. So that, because I just wanted to making sure, Greg, we're saying the right definition and we're making sure that
That
we're
is
on the
fine,
same-
but here's what's gonna happen. By the time we get to this fiscal year of 2024, and Marvis will agree with me, that $3 million isn't gonna buy anything to build a substation. So I recommend we leave that alone and we put in a special purchase for two transformers of choosing of how many MVA. And I do believe in going a little bit bigger rather than just getting it right on the edge. And let's see what we can get, and let's go out and start shopping for two 25 MVA or 33 MVA, you know, what we discussed, and let's see if we can get a better price. And put an emergency purchase request in and have them bring it up to city council. We've realized that we're gonna be in trouble here if we don't start getting this stuff 2 years in advance.
So my
Because-
recommendation would be to go, that we can stay on the CIP, look at 23 through 27. The projects we have on here, make sure the amounts are right and what year we want to move them to. And on the next agenda item, when you're looking for action, that's when you're going to put that in there. I don't think we should change these amounts because they can always be changed down the road also.
Okay,
I would leave the money in there. I understand what you're saying is we don't want to overinflate it, but we also don't know. We're constantly having to readjust with inflation also.
okay, well, that's part of the discussion today, making sure we're looking at the money.
So on the Substation 3 rebuild, where are we looking to have that?
I believe right now that needs to stay where it's at.
Okay.
You know, unless you want to even shift the design back, but if everything else, that stays where it's at.
So I'm going to leave the 523 and the 3 million in 24.
And, yeah.
Just as a note, the design for Substation 3 has already been completed. It was completed 5 years ago. But we are reaching out to our contractor who did the design just to proof it and make sure everything is still good. That design is already done. So that 300 there is fine. Like I said, the rest is what needs to be brought into question, so.
Well, then do you need extra money in fiscal year 23 for pre-construction?
If that's the route that, I would say yes, but if that's the route we need to go, then that's what we need to decide.
Because so it depends. If we're thinking 3 million's not getting even cut, we put $1 million in 23 and leave the 3 million in 24. That, you know, we might as well.
That'd be within basket, yes.
Is that what everybody seems to?
So
Greg?
so we're gonna extend the 500,000 in '23 to $1 million?
That's what, if I'm understanding what is needed, then it'd be, I guess, because there again, if all you're doing is budgeting for making sure that you have the money available for any pre-construction issues, doesn't mean that we're not going to spend it, but we're going to budget for it. And that way we're getting ready so we can actually do the work and get in fiscal year '24.
And again, that would give us a head start as well.
Right,
I
right.
think that's a good idea, because we could start looking at the drawings and purchasing our steel and stuff like that and
Absolutely.
get it stacked up. Okay, so I'm in agreement that we take line item, gosh darn my eyes,
No, you're good.
line item 20-105, Substation 3 rebuild, and we take and increase the amount of money in fiscal year 2023 to $1 million instead of 500,000.
Now, am I leaving the 3 million or am I reducing that to?
3 million's in '24.
Are we
Yeah,
gonna leave it there? or are
Yes,
we
it
going-
stays.
You're
Okay.
leaving it.
I didn't know if we're reducing it by what we're increasing the other.
We are gonna be in for a big surprise when we start getting price and cost involved.
Okay.
The estimates I used to do a long time ago were plus or minus 30%,
Right.
because I never knew when the project was gonna start.
Some Station 4 rebuild. We've got the full 2.5 in '24. Are we going to adjust the amount or the timing of that?
I think we need to adjust the timing out to 2025, which I know Marvis isn't gonna be happy with, but we're already looking at 9.5 million in fiscal year 2024 with the way things sit right now.
Do we want to divide it up like
Well,
we are the other one?
I
Or
think
all
we-
in one year?
No, I think do we want to put the purchase in '23?
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
So let's put the
thinking.
purchase in '23, and so is the '25, 2.5 reasonable, or do we need to just keep that as the build? Okay, so we're getting.
Go to
So-
3 million on that line item, and then in 2025, we're gonna have to look at a basic cost of probably another 3 million to rebuild the station.
But what do
So are
what-
we not going to move the purchase to '23 though?
Well, I think, yeah, Greg, so what do we need for the purchase of 2 transformers?
At this stage, we are unsure. Like I said, I have a few feelers out there, but I have not asked for official quotes because obviously it has to go out as RFQ, and then whatever the vendors respond. So
What's the ballpark?
I hate to even have it as a guess, but we'd say between 5 to 750 for the size that we're looking for.
Per,
Per, yes.
so you're looking
yeah.
at,
$1 million each.
Yeah, $1 million, just put $1 million in it.
for each use, so you want $2 million to be on the safe side for purchase?
1.5 at the minimum. Like
Okay,
I
that's
said, it's
good.
gonna be between $500,000 and $750,000.
Okay, so what I'm
for the
hearing,
transformer.
the committee saying, let's just put 2 million in there in 2023 and look at it as purchasing.
Aren't we putting 2 transformers in each station?
Yes, sir.
So you're gonna have to double that.
Well,
Well,
that's for two.
Oh, that's purchasing
Yes,
2? Okay.
yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Per unit, 500 to 750, yes.
So, yeah, I guess, so what I'm hearing is we want the purchase in 23 of 2 million, then I would agree if we can get it shifted to 25. So do we need any money in 24 as a pre-construction? So in that case, then what do you want? You want 2 million in 23, 1 million in 24, and then 2 million in 25, or 1.5? What's reasonable?
Two.
Okay, so right now, so if I'm looking at it right, then we'll make sure the committee agrees. We're looking at 2 million in 23. We're looking at 1 million in 24, and we said 2 million? 2 million in 25.
I'm confused. I thought he said the transformers would be 1.5.
Minimum for 2, minimum, so
Yeah, so why are we putting in 2 million?
We're being safe.
We're being safe.
We don't know what copper costs and metal costs are gonna be in the years we're gonna be asking for them.
Again, we're
We
hoping
can
that-
always adjust it down, but it's gonna be a pain for budget analysis to adjust it back up. I'd rather ask for more and then give them back what we don't use.
But that doesn't seem to be what happens.
No, they use everything they get and then some. That's just greed. I can't fix that. But I'm saying I want to make an emergency purchase in fiscal year 2022 for 2 transformers.
But this is then another one for
Emergency
23.
purchase. Well, this is why I'm trying to figure this out. We need 2 cans in every fiscal year for the next, till 2024.
Yes, right, that's exactly, okay.
So that's what I'm trying to do. So if we move the 2 million into 2023 for 2 transformers for Substation 4 rebuild, and then you're talking between 36 and, let's say a year, just for argument's sake, to get them delivered and out here tested and everything else, then that'll dovetail into 2025 for Substation 4 rebuild, which we haven't talked about. But what we're trying to do is buy our material in advance and have it sit locked up in the yard to where we can get at it and use it when we need it.
So, keeping in mind, Substation 4 will not be as drastic as Substation 3.
That is why the numbers are
Right.
different on the
Exactly.
construction. You and I talked about
Exactly.
that. But I'm forecasting a 20 to 25% increase in cost in steel, copper, and aluminum.
And that's quite possible.
And so I want to make certain that I don't have the minus 30% on my estimate. I'd rather be 20% above and then go back and say, okay, we're talking just material, nuts and bolts, because is it Tor that's done the design?
Yes, for Substation
Okay.
3, yes.
Yeah, see, I go back a long ways. So my thing is I think that we need to bump the design as to really if that's what we want, or have it adjusted like they're doing the review. Because like you and I discussed, we're gonna use the same design for 3 as we're gonna do for 4, with a little modification. But the basic design, the relay protection, all the equipment setups and everything else is gonna be about the same.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody has to understand this. We're trying to replicate the stations to where we don't have custom stations on every one we build. So that's what we're trying to do. So the problem I'm having right now is we missed the boat on Sub 3's purchase for transformers because it should have been in fiscal FY '22. We missed that in its entirety. Okay, so now we've got to do an emergency purchase if we're going to be able to get the transformers by fiscal year 2024 to build them, because 2023 fiscal year is dead. They're going to have 52 months to design and build these transformers.
What's the 1 million for FY '23 then, on Substation 3? Is that just
That was for,
pre-construction?
that FY '23 1 million was for the preliminary construction, because guess what? The old boys that built the station down there, drawings are a little scarce, but I guarantee you'll find a conduit with a backhoe.
All right, good enough. I just want to make sure that.
And Eileen, once we get the purchase for the, because what we're hoping to do is get in purchase for 6 transformers. So see if there's some way we can work that out, or have them do something to get one so we can get the same cans and all that. So once we get that done, then maybe we can come back and tweak these, and we have till the end, we have till May, just do a little tweaking, right?
Correct, but
For the 23.
yeah, so if you're worried about putting something in 24 or 25, understand that when we're sitting here doing this again next year, that's when we can adjust those. That's when we're gonna go back and say, hey, we bought the transformers, they weren't 2, they were 1.5. So then we adjust our numbers, because we're asking for the next year.
Right, so we'll be able to do that, but 23, we need to do that before May. So hopefully
Correct.
we'll have an idea by May.
But
if
also-
the 2 is reasonable or not.
If we go in and we're asking for 2 million and it comes in at 1.5, we can also make the purchase, and then when the council approves a purchase, we pay the PO, there's 500,000 left over. I close the account and you guys follow the 500 is no longer being encumbered. Then changing this plan, it kind of, in 23, it'd be very easy to see exactly where that goes.
Okay.
And that way, we're not spending it because it's there, because we close it after we make the purchase.
Okay, but you guys are talking about like doubling the cost of this Substation 4 rebuild. You're adding 2 million.
Well, you can make, I'll interject, but Ned and Greg are the ones that are experts on it, but my understanding this money wasn't enough to begin with. So they realized actually last year that this money was probably short, and then this year definitely short with all the different expenses going on. So we're trying to correct the money to say this is what we actually believe is gonna happen, because right now, we're gonna underestimate it, which will also, so really quickly out of the thing, this is gonna affect our rate too. So if we.
That's what I'm
if we-
concerned about, because that's part of this 5-year plan.
Right, but I guess I would prefer to try to correct it than underestimate it and then not have enough money.
But so we're increasing it by almost 100%?
Yes, it's what it sounds like. But it's also the thing is we're gonna be pushing it out, and hopefully by 23, 24, we'll know if these numbers are correct. And so some of these numbers, the million and the 2 million, 1 million in 24, 2 million in 25, we might be able to say, for a good example, we put a 1 million in 23 for the substation 3. So in next year, we find out what they needed that 1 million, and maybe we can adjust the one for the substation 4 and stuff like that. So right now, my understanding, there's everything so much in flux that we are doing a pretty big swag. Isn't that an engineering term?
WAG.
WAG, it's a swag.
No swag, swag something else. WAG
Okay.
is what we call it.
So on Substation 4, I have the 2 million for 23.
That's for
That's
equipment purchase.
Mhm.
2 million?
For
Each
23.
transformer is
that's
almost $1 million
That's
apiece.
2 transformers.
Yeah, so we are talking about a total of $5 million over 5 years, Eileen. So, yeah, just I don't want to stop until, make sure I get your input. It's just, what I'm hearing is that's what, so 23, we have until May to sort of see if that 2 million still seems correct. We're going to ask the council to approve the 2 million, but we have some time to make sure that that's reasonable. The 1 million and the 2 million we have next year to look at more closely.
Teacher.
Okay, go ahead, Greg.
What we're trying to do, if we do emergency purchase in FY '22 for 2 transformers for Substation 3 rebuild, we will have a very good idea of what they're going to cost each. Then in FY 2023 budget, which we're going to talk about next year, okay, that 2 million for purchase of equipment will go down to the realistic price of what they're going to cost. So basically, I'm trying to buy transformers in fiscal year 2022 for Substation 3 rebuild, which will be delivered up to 52 weeks after we put the purchase in. So that puts us right dead in the middle of FY 2024 when we're rebuilding Sub 3 that the transformers come in. Now, if we can get 2 more transformers ordered in FY '23 for Substation 4, they might all come in on 4 trucks. In other words, all at once. We don't know that yet. But the problem is we're trying to look into the future, and it's very difficult to calculate construction costs 2 years out. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a budget. This anticipated 9.5 million on 2024 is scaring the bejeebus out of me. Okay, we can't afford that hit. I'd like to get it more level. So if we take the actual construction of Substation 4 and push it out to 2025, okay, then that 2.5 million for construction of Substation 4 would move to 2025.
So what do you plan? You've got 2 million in 23. How much in 24?
24 will probably be down in the 500,000 range.
Well, we were talking about $1 million. So,
That was in 23 for Substation 3.
right, so we said 1 million, so that's what we need to add. Marvis,
Okay.
do you want 1 million or you want 5? Or 500,000, will that work for Substation 4?
Remember, this is a
This is-
placeholder. This isn't absolute. This is just a placeholder.
But I guess the thing is, and Howard and Dan, if you can help us here, because you guys are in the business right now, or you just out of it, Howard. So what's happening? Is this realistic that what we're trying to discuss, or are we missing the boat on something?
If I may ask, what's the turnaround time on the actual substation rebuild? Are we actually in a hurry to purchase transformers, or is there, I mean, you have a lot of work to do up until the point where you would need them, correct? Well, I mean, even for a footprint,
No, not exactly. Again, even though Substation 3 is a project in and of itself, like I explained earlier, it is working in conjunction with what we're doing. So in order to complete what we need to do, Substation 3 will ultimately have to come down within the next 2 years. So that's why it's in the fiscal years that it's in, so.
Well, I mean, once it starts, how long is the estimated time of completion?
A year. I can't say that because of how construction is, and of course, there's the bid process.
Absolutely.
I would say at a minimum, roughly a year, or 9 months to a year.
Okay, and that's what I want to get the heart at, is just, if we're looking at purchasing early, how early do we need to be? And if it's a year turnaround time, I mean, obviously, we would like to have them on site before, work begins, but there could be a little lag.
Well, you have to understand that, Marvis, you explained to him what's up there on sub 3. I know the area really well. First off, you have to scrub all the old equipment off of it.
Correct.
And that's gonna be a nightmare in itself. And then you gotta dig out all the old 50, 60-year-old products that are down in there, because that's an old lattice construction station.
Yes.
And pull out all the footings.
And we're
And then you gotta compact the soil.
Well, we're projecting taking it down 3 to 4 foot, so,
Yeah.
on top of that, so yes.
So there's a lot of work.
Absolutely. So then you went time before you actually need the transformers, or no?
You know what? Electricians don't like waiting for parts. I don't care what anybody says. I'd rather have it here in the yard, ready to go.
I understand that. I'm concerned about, having to amend this current fiscal year's budget.
I think the conversation that at our joint meeting was to purchase early because of the cost.
Correct.
So in talking about purchasing our transformers now compared to how much they're going to go up if we wait and purchase them 2 years from now or a year from now, that was the big thing about purchasing early, is the amount of money. Even if we purchased them and we stored them, it was going to save us a specific amount of money.
But we have two issues, to my understanding now. We have the money issue, but we also have the availability. My understanding is that with the bailout funds, or however you want to call it, everybody's starting to rebuild and do different things. So it's a good chance that we need to get our order in fast, so we get ahead of the line instead of at the end of the line. Correct. And so if we wait too long and saying we have time, it's too late. The other problem you've got to remember, so if we're out for a year or so, it's an issue, but I would assume we would like to avoid having the substation out during the summertime, at least 2 summers. So whatever we can do to at least keep it out of 2 summers would be advantageous. So the more we have available to keep it moving is better off, in my opinion.
Understood. I want to understand the emergency nature of purchases this early. And I'm an optimist. I think possibly that the infrastructure bill may provide more funds for something like this. So I'm wondering if it's worth just waiting a little bit longer just to understand if there is any available funds to help us do this.
Well, if there was available funds, we could still apply for it.
Okay.
And we could always, we're always looking to do that.
I just want to make, that's something that I haven't asked yet. I just want to make sure, okay.
So I guess just trying to get back on to completing the 5-year, we're looking at $5 million per substation.
Is that what you're saying that we just did, or that was what you guys
That's what you guys just did.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
So what we're saying is for Substation 3, you're asking for $2 million in 22, $1 million in 23, and $3 million in 24. For Substation 4, you're looking at $2 million for 23, $1 million for 24, and $2 million. And so you're being we're very consistent on those two. On the San Felipe Mendota feeder, I have on here $100,000 in fiscal year 23. Is that an amount of course, that's additional funding to the ongoing project.
My understanding, that was a closeout. So Marvis, you have to tell us on that one, because that was just closing out the project, is what we were told.
Yep. Okay, so on sample being paid, this is the money that's in there right now.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
E2101.
23, that's supposed to be done this, what's that supposed to be done this?
Right now. And the final funding I have is 100, is that right? And is that where it should be?
Can I say $1 million?
This is what's available right now.
1.5, right?
Yeah, this is what's encumbered. We have 100,000 as closeout in 23.
That we're adding to that, yes.
And we're good.
Hey, for now, but again,
Okay.
All right.
Do we want to leave that there, or do we want to change it?
But if we're moving 150,000 from closing E1902
Correct.
into that project, we won't need that 100,000 in fiscal year '23. Is that correct?
That is not correct. And the reason that is not correct is because, again, we're dealing with the same thing, construction costs. And until we get an accurate bid and quote, we won't know. But like I said, just excavation, digging, and trenching alone is astronomical. And this is what this project is all about.
But that's because it's just in design right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
so
like I
we're
said,
waiting on the design report
Exactly.
to make sure these numbers are correct.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'm going to leave the 123.
Yeah, that's what you're saying you need.
Okay. Next is a Substation 1 to Substation 4 feeder ties, and we have 1.2 in fiscal year '23.
Again, I guess then that's where we need to understand, does that have to be done in that year, and is that money accurate?
Yes and yes.
Okay, so we need, so that one we want it to stay where it's at.
Yes.
Because we've increased 23 quite a bit already. Just want to make sure that if there's anything that we have to keep everything, or is there anything that can be moved? But I guess as long as, see, we got 3, 4, so now we've got over $5 million in 23 now. If we keep the Substation 2 feeder too, and I'm assuming we need that, we need the Substation 2 feeder also.
2 to 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3.
Yes.
Okay, so, and is that
much
750?
in that place in that year.
Is that accurate, or does that need to be boosted up with everything
Well,
in flux?
That's pretty accurate right there.
Okay.
I've got a question back on 20-116. In the 5-year plan that Greg and George Ree had worked on, they had split that between 23 and 24, $600,000 each. So do we think we're going to get that whole project done in 23? Or is it going to run into 24? And if so, we should probably budget that way.
Chances are it will run into 24, but that's because of, obviously having to bid it out and get a contractor. That would be the only reason. But and the chances of that happening is probably pretty good, that it will draft over into 24. But I don't think we need to add any additional funding at this stage.
I'm not saying adding, I'm saying splitting it between the 2 years.
So if it goes out to bid and we sign a contract for the whole contract, we need to be able, when we sign that contract, we need it funded. So if we break it into 2 years, does that mean you guys want to break that into 2 contracts?
No, it wouldn't be two
Because when they do
contracts,
that, when we go out and the council they've approved the funding for 1 year, they're not going to approve agreeing to a contract that they haven't agreed to fund. So that's what worries me a little bit about breaking it into the 2 years. You're basically putting it out to bid as one big contract, but you've only got approval for half of it.
I think she was also looking, so sorry to speak, but that was one thing the mayor had said, is he was wondering if we could split the money among years. So I guess there's times where if you've got one contract, you have to have that money up front. We understand that. Unless it's like, okay, you're approving it in this year and the contract itself, because sometimes you have to have the money up front, and sometimes you're saying, we're gonna do this amount, and you'll pay this amount this year, we're gonna do this amount, we'll have the money available this year.
Yeah, I'm just saying the contract would have to reflect it like that. If you're gonna go in and you're gonna ask for one contract, a contractor to bid on a full contract, or are you gonna go out and split it into 2 years, or are you gonna sign one half of the contract, and that's what,
No, I don't, yeah, no, we're not, yeah. Yeah, we're not asking for that, we're just,
And just to be clear, piggybacking what Ms. Carroll was saying, we have done that in the past, even with the 69 Buchanan to the tap. A portion of that was, the project was just roughly numbers, $10 million. A portion of that was in 21, and then the bulk of it being in 22, which is what we're in now. So we have done that in the past. But the contractor, whoever the awarder is, has to be in agreement to accept that as well, accept those terms, so. And unfortunately for this one, we had a good relationship with the contractor, so they did not necessarily have a problem with it. But of course, they knew that the project was funded as well, though.
well, the ones that are easy is we're gonna design in-house or something, and then you have a design amount, and if you have separate, if they're actually doing two separate things, it's easier to do it. If you're saying, okay, I'm gonna construct it, and it's just falling into a separate year. But again, I think part of it, if I understand Eileen too, part of it's just trying to get our understanding is we understand that it's a matter of how you look out on paper and how Munis looks at it and how we're looking at things to flow. And so it's more of, I guess, our process of
I
trying to
agree, a
flow it.
difference between seeing when the construction's gonna finish. It's just sometimes, depending on how the contract is written, that doesn't mean we can, wait to, it's a contract we're entering into, like buying the transformers. Even though we are waiting 52 weeks for it, we have to sign that contract and purchase it. Even if it doesn't get in the ground for 2 years, that means you need to fund it the year you're making that purchase.
And I think, Eileen, right now, since the electric fund has a reasonable amount of cash in there, that I think we have a little more flexibility, but that would be a great question in the future when you have, if we're pretty much collecting money as we go, then that would be something we'd definitely have to look at. But right now, I think we have a little more flexibility, unless
Well-
I'm missing something else here.
Well, and also the priority on this one, substation 1 to 4 feeder ties, is a priority 2. And the substation 2 to 3 feeder ties is a priority 1. So I'm assuming we would do that one first, and then do the substation 1 to 4 second.
Yes, and the reason being, again, in order for us to complete substation, the de-energization of substation 3, we need to be able to offload that, shift that load. So we have to complete 2 to 3 prior, because that is the direction that's going. So yes, that is why that's prioritized the way it is.
So is it reasonable to expect that we will even get to that project in 23? I mean, I'm talking about substation 1 to 4 feeder ties.
Yes.
So those will get done in fiscal year 23?
Yes. Yes, I'll just leave it there. Yes, they will get done.
So Eileen, what we need to go back onto is if things on the top that are labeled 5, we need to push those further out. And so I think we're gonna have to look at 24, 25, or 26, if I'm understanding correctly.
But those up there have already been approved, so they just keep rolling over. And what I'm concerned about is adding more and more projects to a list of projects that we're not getting done. We don't have the manpower, we don't have the design, and we keep adding projects, and so our list just keeps growing and we don't have the manpower.
The one little bit of input I would put on that is those projects are part of one big project. If all of a sudden we stop those, that's that whole conversion. That's a list of that whole thing. So that's why I tried to separate these projects out different and prioritize them different than the rest of the projects. These projects are intricate, and we put in the notes in order to make that entire conversion work. So that's why Marva says, yeah, that has to happen, or it stops the entire the big project. So I feel like if I understand what you're saying, I would feel a little different if we were adding projects outside of that conversion that we may have a different option on. But when we're looking at projects within that conversion, keep in mind, that's one big timeline we're trying to make.
Okay.
So that's why we separated those out, is to realize those projects are vital to that end result.
And if I understand correctly, Keegan had mentioned that a plan was being developed to show how this could be done. So we're trying to prove that we can go forward. The last couple of years, we're going to do something different than we have been doing to try to.
We've also dealt with some stuff we've never dealt with.
I understand, but that's
The pandemic and the material shortage. Those are things that's real world stuff that we had absolutely hoping that, one, we don't shut down again, and two, the material shortage changes for the better, not for the worse. So in saying we can't make that promise, but I feel like we're definitely going in a better direction than we were a year ago with those outside forces. I do have one question. In previous, we had the 4 to 12 kV cutover and the 4 kV substation removal is one project. As you see on here, I separated those out because the 4 kV substation removals, in past discussions, we looked at the fact that those could be pushed out as far as we want. So my question is, leaving the 4 to 12 kV cutover basically at the 1.5 million in 24, is that something that we want to leave the way it shows? Or would that be something that realistically, that would be additional funding to finish Project E1909? Why is there kind of like a suggestion as far as why we would have that as a new project?
Well, the one thing, first off, we understand that it'll be tracked here. So that's the only way you're telling us that we'll see it on a 5-year plan. If you add it to, or if you add it to that other number, we would see that other number down here.
In other words, if you show it as additional funding for that project, then it's going to be in the 5-year plan. As that, it's going to still stay on the 5-year plan. It's just instead of it being under a brand new project, it's going to be under the existing project code.
I guess that's something we would be asking you. You tell us what makes sense on that, because
I would rather show it as future funding for where it is, so that I don't close 2 projects out at the end. Because if we do it as a separate project, then I'm going to add to the open projects, and at the end, I'm going to be trying to close out 2 projects instead of 1.
Okay, so we got 2 issues though on this one. So okay, we'll go there. We'll have to go back and close it. For the first thing though, so you broke it out, but you left it at 1.5 for the cutover. So again, we expected it cost more than we originally thought?
In discussion, we don't know what it's going to cost to close them and how far we push them out. So we were erring on the side of caution. If you want me to lower it, I can lower it too.
Well, I'm asking what's realistic. I'm not saying lower it and then you tell me, no, that shouldn't have been lowered. So you're saying it should be about 1.5. But can we move, so the second question is, can we move it out? Is it feasible to move it out to fiscal year 25? And if we're looking at some of these to shift into 24, maybe 25 is the more realistic time to cut everything over anyway. Is there any problem with moving it to 25?
No, we're looking at this. Yeah. So the 1.5, they're saying, do we want to add it in 24 to close out this project, or can it be moved to 25?
I would add it. I would prefer not to move it out to 25, so we can go ahead and get all of this done as possible and not prolong it any more than we have to. I would prefer to leave it as is and not move it to 25, so we could, for lack of a better word, keep the project moving how it is, and not have to prolong it any more than we have to. That's my suggestion, or recommendation, so to speak.
I guess since we would be revisiting it next year, that isn't as critical.
Correct.
But then can we move 5? Because we're basically, we moved 4 a little bit, but we kept 1 million in there. And if we leave substation 5 transformers, that's still one expensive year. And again, are we going to get it all done? That's the biggest thing. You're talking about 2 substations, so is 5, could we even move 5 out to 26?
What's 5?
Substation 5, the other projects. So
It's electric 20115.
Thank you.
We can move that out to 25. I wouldn't feel comfortable moving it out to 26, but I don't have a problem moving it to 25.
Okay, so it just makes leaving the cutover easier than by saying all of that has to be done. So I guess maybe we should finish 23 and then go back to, but we're almost with 24 also, we're almost
Well,
done.
we're doing it per project. We're not doing it right now by year.
Okay,
So the question being is that we're gonna leave, the 4 kV cutover of 1.5. I'm not gonna, with the understanding, I'm gonna make it additional funding to our regular project that we're already working on. And then, the 4 kV substation removals, we're gonna leave in 27, which we could always shift that in future years. Going down the circuit 63, let's see.
There's no money in there.
No. The substation 5 transformer and foundation replacement, we're gonna shift that, keep it at the 2.5, and we're gonna shift it to 25. The transmission switches is 425.
but I guess right now though, the problem is that we need 2 transformers for substation 5, correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Greg.
we've got stimulus money that's sitting here in Boulder City. We could ask some of that possibly for emergency purchase of transformers in 22, and that would give us a relief valve. The other thing I just thought
When do
about,
we need to buy these transformers?
Marvis? Okay. On electric 2119, the 4 kV substation removals, that's gonna be substation 3 being gutted, right? And having that rebuilt, so that's gonna be parts off to the side, but then we're basically concentrating on the substation removals is 1 and 2. Substation 1, substation 2, is that right? Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
So once we get the cutover done, that's the only time we can remove the substations. So everything that we're talking about, all these line items that we're talking about beforehand are critical path items that have to be done and completed before we can do any substation removals. So that's why I was making the recommendation that our substation removals just be pushed off, as you can either keep it in that same project, but just with a note, substation removals will happen in 2026, FY 2026 or FY 2027. And then we can always bring it forward because the metals that we're gonna be taking out of there will have value. So I'm hoping and counting that we'll get some money back on the demo work on substation 1 and 2.
Yeah, I guess either if we bring E1909 down into the 5-year plan, and then we put the substation removals in it, I guess that's not a problem, but if we're not, we just want to make sure we see it in the 5-year plan.
Yeah, the removals are in 27, right?
Right, but I guess what Greg was just saying, do you want to add, is that a separate project, or you want to add that to?
No, that's a separate project.
That is separate than 4K overhead?
Yeah, because I definitely don't want to keep that other one open until we wait to close that. So that'll definitely be by itself. Now, a question though, substation 5, we have 2.5 in fiscal year 24. If we follow the other substations, we've got those at 5 million and we've got them over 3 years. Is this one need to reflect the same way?
Well, 5 is a different, first off, we would have it, we do need to look at the transformer purchase. So if we were
Right.
talking about 22, 23, and 24, then you would put 2 million in 24 for purchases, and then you would put, so I don't know, if you were, I don't think we need to put it at 5 million unless I'm missing something.
Well, that's
Sounded
what you
like-
did on 3 and 4.
Right, but my understanding that the 5 is not the same project.
The 3, let me interject real quick.
Mm-hmm.
3 is a complete substation rebuild.
Okay.
4 is not a complete substation rebuild. Isn't that correct, Marvis?
Yes, that is correct.
And 5 is just foundation.
However, calm down, however, we are trying to match these substations as closely as possible.
Right.
So even though substation 3 is a complete rebuild, 4, 5, and 6, we're going to try to match them as close as possible. So we have one type of substation. We don't have these 4 or 5 like we have now. So
But-
yes, all 4 of them, when everything's said and done, they're all going to be extensive. Absolutely. But the one that is going to be from stem to stern is substation 3. We're
Right.
ripping that out altogether, and then that will become our model. And we will try to match the other 3 as closely as possible to substation 3 without demolishing them completely, just building them from where they are. So yes. Now, go ahead.
Transformers, you're gonna want the same for all of the existing,
sir.
the final 3 substations?
With the exception of substation 6, the substations that we're looking at, the same transformers are 3, 4, and 5.
Right,
We're going to take the plan is to take the ones out of substation 5 and move them over to 6, because
Okay.
6 is our mostly lightly loaded area.
right.
And we think those substations will be sufficient once they've been rebuilt to put at substation 6.
Okay, yeah, so I knew that 3 was a complete demolish,
Yes, sir.
and then you're saying 5 is just dressing up, clean up, foundations to handle the bigger transformers.
To handle a bigger transformer, and 4, we need to put 69 kV breakers. Right now, we have circuit switchers.
I saw that.
Totally
Not good,
unacceptable.
right,
So those are things that have to happen. Yes.
okay. So that's what I'm trying to say, is it won't be as expensive as 3, which is a complete rebuild, but it will be expensive.
So my question is, trying to look at how we've done the other 2, what year are we going to purchase the transformers for the 2 million on that project?
We should put that in 23, shouldn't we? And get
That's
them
my-
all ordered
that's my
at the same
thought.
time?
And then, are we going to, and what are we going to put in 24 and what are we going to put in 25?
Well-
If we're putting 2 million for the purchase in 23,
I guess 25 doesn't necessarily have as much pre-construction. Am I missing something, Marvis? Looks like we could probably, we don't have to copy 4. We can just say put nothing in 24 and anticipate doing it in 25 and then put the 2.5. So you put 2 million, because you're already going to we're almost doubling it by putting 2 million of purchasing the purchasing the transformers. And then you want to keep 2.5, I'm assuming, for the construction aspect.
Yeah, and again, I'm comfortable moving that to 25.
But I wouldn't
If we
I
could-
would not follow the same thing that we did in 4. I would not put the 1 million
No.
in. Okay.
No, if we
For
can.
pre-construction.
Like Ms. Eileen just said, if we can jumpstart the transformer purchase for 5 with the 2 million in 23 or whatever year you decide, I'm perfectly comfortable with transferring or shifting the 2.5 and 24 to 25 for substation 5.
Okay. So Carol, so what we're saying is it's 1 million, well, it's actually only 500,000 left because we're putting 2.5 compared to 2 million in for the substation 4. So we're reducing it, it's 4.4 million instead of 5 million.
yep, so I have 2 million in fiscal year 23, I have 0 in fiscal year 24, and I have 2.5 in fiscal year 25.
That's correct.
Okay. Transmission switches of 400 in fiscal year 25, and that is all I have
So
for electric.
So we have nothing in 26?
Nope.
No.
We should be all done.
Yeah, right. Okay, so now then, so for electrical, can we start looking at some of these, I guess to give an idea, so this is where it's confusing, but some of these, for instance, feeder 64 E1905 is a priority 4, E2102 circuit 45-61 is a 5 priority, and E2103 circuit 23, which is we already said was 0. But how do we show that we're going to push it out, and how far can we push it out?
Okay, well,
Don't need to.
Yeah, those are already.
yeah, those are
already
funded. That's
so-
not even about the CIP right now. Those are no, here, I understand what you're saying. What I'm just trying to do right now is my 5-year, my 23 through 25. I did the priorities to show the direction the full plans are going. But as far as if the funding is already in place and we're trying to prioritize like lack of staff or what we're doing to complete our completed projects, that's not the 5-year plan right now.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, are we done with the 5-year 23 through 27 on electrical so that we can move to
Well,
water?
My concern is that we just added $5 million to the fiscal year 23.
But we also
Budget.
removed from 24, which is what we,
No, but what you're saying, we've added 5 million additional. We didn't just move around. We added 5 million additional.
Well, we dropped 4 million from 24, but then we added another 2 million. Let me see.
okay, well,
Anyway, we've just increased the budget.
right,
By a big
but
amount.
there's no way we could have purchased 6 transformers and not done that.
Yeah.
That's my point. So if we were to take those transformer purchases away, it's a little, and you want to compare like where we started, just keep in mind that those 6, when we're looking at purchasing those transformers, that's the bulk of what we just added. So that was the issue. We said we wanted to buy them, so we got a better pricing on them.
Yeah, I think that's what we've done, is we've added money into all of these big expenditures. But again, we just don't know. But we're trying to cover our bases, and we may end up with surplus money down the road that we don't have to spend, so.
Correct.
Basically by getting the money up front, at least we get authorized. And then if it's better than that, then we're better down the road.
And I think the big thing is we did move it to equal it out more, because that was the big issue, was that all the money was going out in 24. And
Okay.
we knew 23 was going to be more because that's when we need to purchase those transformers.
So the last thing we've got, which is part of the CIP but isn't part of your fiscal year 23 budget, is I still want to keep harping on that we need to consider additional funding. So we've lost the voter in 24. We've been told that there's no more voter approved lease money and or sales money.
Correct. That was last funded in 22.
Actually, 23. There is some money in 23. If I saw it correctly, there is some money in 23.
I think it's,
Yeah.
there's 2 different ones. There's the cell and there's the voter approved.
Yeah, CIP 3.
Okay, well, I thought we have something in 23, but we don't have anything going from 24 on.
Correct.
And so I guess if that can be looked at or something before the 5-year plan is completed, it'd be nice to sort of get an idea of if we have any money, because even my understanding, there's 20% that has the ability to be used, and we're not showing any funds from
Okay,
24
the
on.
one money that you want to consider is if you're looking at additional funding sources, because of those 2, that would be an agenda item on its own.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Because
if that's
that's
a part
not-
of the CIP.
That's
for
not
this
gonna be,
discussion. That would be
the
something
funding
else.
source is not part of this 5-year plan.
Okay, then we'll, okay, in the budget, just trying to make sure I understand the timing.
Oh, no,
and-
that's,
And everything we
yeah.
have. So, okay, thank you.
I have just one more question. Would it be better for us to create a project just for purchase of the transformers for all in 24, and then instead of having it divided between each project, just do?
The only thing with that is you're asking for a budget, are you talking about doing a separate project for purchase on each, on each
you
one?
know,
So that'd be 4 or 3 or
no.
4 different projects?
No, one project for the purchase of 6 transformers.
Then that would have to be in, so you're
And removing them from the actual Substation 3, Substation 4, take the money out of there and put it into one project for the purchase. And then, once those were purchased, we could close that out.
that is up to you. I just know you guys are big on counting how many projects you have open. So just realize what,
But that's one
The
project.
equipment
It would
projects.
be purchased and then closed.
we could look at doing it that way too.
But
Not for 24. It would be, the project would open in 22 with emergency funding in 22, and then funding in 23, and funding, it would be all of, the funding would be in 22 for the emergency and 23 for the,
The rest of the
so,
project.
yeah, right now we have 20, we have 2 years, the 22 and 4 transformers in 23.
correct. So the project would be open in 22, and it wouldn't be able to be closed until the purchases in 23 were finished. But that can be done too.
Go ahead, Greg.
The other problem is, until you energize the transformer, you don't make the final payment. So if you take and have a special line item for purchasing transformers, that means you have to test and certify every one of them on the site they're gonna be sitting on before you make final payment. Not smart. And I would rather take the mountain down a little bit at a time than take the whole mountain down at once. I'd rather go a little bit each time, because maybe if you take and wait, let's say a year, all of a sudden they have the bottom drop out of pricing on steel and copper. Not a given, but it does ebb and flow. You might be able to snag a set of them for a little bit less money than what if you bought all 6 of them up front, when it's material costs and material is pretty high. And that's why I'm saying see what the law states, and on the stimulus money that the federal government has given Boulder City, and buy 2 up front. And then in the next fiscal year that we're dealing with, which will be in less than 12 months, I know that for certain, we go after the next 2. And that way we got control over the costs, and we can shop if we have to. But I know that Marvis will want them all the same, out of the same vendor. And if we tell the vendor what we're trying to do, I think the vendor will work with us, because that's guaranteed work. But to put it all up front, I think it'd be a heck of a hit to take on one fiscal year.
I don't think dividing the contract, she's just saying to take the equipment purchase out of the project.
But if you do
It's
that-
not a timing, we would still be able to purchase them the same way we were talking about.
But it is a timing, because Marvis will attest to the fact they have to be tested and certified at 50% load before we pay the final bill.
Correct.
Well, if they sit for 4 years on the slab, we can't do that.
No,
waiting for the project.
yeah,
Okay, we're getting. depends
No, we're
much
on the
time-
same topic.
No, we are, we're okay, we're just getting low on time.
Right.
And
but
what I'm thinking of what we want to do is
yeah,
that.
let's just keep going, and we'll work on the next FY 2023 next year at this time.
No, we're working on 23 now.
yeah, 23 is right now.
Hold on a minute. I think what we can do is that we aren't sure how we're gonna get this 22 purchase done. And we can't talk about it in detail. We've already probably talked more than we need to. So when they get 22 purchase squared away. What we need to do for November's, so in our next agenda topic, let's talk about that purchase of what we need to have on an agenda item to make sure we can talk properly on it. And then we can, so if we just have the 2 million in 23 as placeholders right now, we still have till May before, so even if the council approves it this way, we can say we think that once they've talked about the purchase, then we can find out which is better for the city. And so the purchasing, we can get the purchasing person's input, we get Marvis's input, we get Carol's input, we get everybody's input and figure it out, because we're just sort of batting it back and forth right now. If we put it into another agenda item in November, I think we can get a little more details for it. Is that okay with everybody?
I think,
City council is going to approve this in November.
No, they're gonna approve it in December.
that is our
Goal.
tentative approval. We were shooting for, there's only one meeting in December. If we don't make the last meeting in November, then it'll have to be pushed to the December. So,
I keep on hearing different dates.
the last issue we're talking about is more of a almost, I want to call a clerical thing. It doesn't change the numbers, the total CIP number. It's just basically how you're going to see it. So I think that's something we could adjust with that when you ask for the funding in, for the emergency funding for 22, if we wanted to change it. So are we able to move on to water, just because I'm a little worried about the time?
Are we okay with electrical? Yes. Okay.
Okay, so, okay, so this is the same revision 3 that you've received for the last 2 meetings. And what we need to do is look at 23, 24, 25, and what we would want to add in 27. So the first one we have is install the PRV at airport and at lower end of Georgia. We have it funded for $250 in 2024.
I guess in this case, we've been focusing on the electrical so much, we have sort of an idea on the electrical. The water, I think, is, again, we need a lot of your input and understanding. I'm not sure that the cost differential was that drastic in the years. So part of it is we did need to know, though, if there are more projects, because if I understand correct, I'm not sure if there's gonna be more professional studies on the infrastructure. So if we're waiting to get more information to see if we have more work that still has to be done that's not currently on the projects.
The one project that Keegan mentioned that he wanted to add in 23, but I need to get more numbers on, would be a separate project for the Bermuda Dunes, because he wants to do the water and sewer upgrade when they are doing the street project. That's one that I'm waiting to get those numbers on. So that's the only one that I see as an addition at this point. So you guys would see it before you did a final on this, or council did a final on it. But that's the only addition that I have been made aware of.
Okay, so I guess,
Are there any cost estimates on that yet, or probable costs?
I have not heard of any.
Okay, just curious.
so my recommendation, and then again, this is Howard and Dan, if you see anything different. Mike, if you have some suggestions that this should be shifted. Again, I think last year we focused on electrical, we didn't really get into the water much. We were also waiting for the studies to be done at the time that this was done. So has this been updated since the studies have been done? The water studies where you did the reservoir studies and all that?
No, it has not.
So can that be updated then?
I can, Josh, do we have those?
Do we have, what, the studies?
Yeah.
What, the Brown and Caldwell study, you guys all seen that? Basically, this was made off of that study. So as far as any changes on this, nothing has been done.
Okay, so revision 3 did include those.
Correct.
Yes, like the reservoir improvements and everything. We took what Brown and Caldwell suggested, and we added it to some of the future CIP years. And since then, this was when Dennis was here, since then, nothing in water and sewer has really changed.
So did anybody on the committee here see any changes from revision 3 that stood out that they'd like to discuss?
My only concern, are these projects, do they need to be done at this time? We've got several projects, water projects that haven't even been started yet. Do we think we'll actually get to these, or should we move them out some to give us time to complete the ones
So
that are on
these-
our current list?
I do not see any reason to move those. I think we should be able to, if you're referring to like the 8-inch butterfly valve replacement in 23, and the in 23 also the rebuild pressure reducing valve stations. I think we're good keeping those in 23 like that.
So the butterfly valve replacement, the water 21 and 104, and the copper service 2106, those are ongoing projects. So those are projects that go out at, one goes out through 25, copper service goes out past 27.
So was there anything else in 26 or 27 besides that?
The one the only thing I have is in 27, the copper replacement will go in for the additional payment. That's 10 years total. But that is the only thing I have to add to 27.
So again, we're really focusing on 23 to make sure, so you're gonna add, so we'll add, right now we don't know how much it's gonna be, but part of that money should be part of the butterfly replacements, isn't that correct? Because the Bermuda Dunes is still, or is that in addition to the 200,000? Addition, okay.
Yeah, because we're purposely making that a separate project so it doesn't take away from, he doesn't want to remove from the copper service or the butterfly.
Okay, I'm sorry, he did mention that last time, I apologize, that's correct, okay. So we would just be increasing the $900,000 by whatever the Bermuda would be, and we did have some offset, I thought, but that's later on budget discussion. So I guess, so there's nothing else in 23 that, so then so then again, we can talk next year or even later on in actual calendar year 22, see how things are moving forward, and then again, that's another discussion. So as far as this year goes, I don't have anything. Does anybody have anything on here for water?
It looks like that they pretty well have figured out what they need to do, and there's a pretty good timeline to do it, get it done, so it doesn't look like it's anything too complicated here, other than, like you say, Bermuda Dunes with the pavement, but that money's coming, that's not a utility expense, is it? The asphalt replacement? So,
Yeah, but the extra valves.
No, the extra valve, you're right.
So there is, we would expect several, at least a couple, probably 100,000, I would assume,
okay.
100,000 or so more.
That could be, yeah,
Because it is the water part of it would be our cost.
right.
So are we okay to move on to sewer, or?
Okay, yep, thank you.
This is what we want to look at.
And again, with sewer, a lot of the future CIP projects, some of the things we projected to work on came from that Brown and Caldwell water and sewer assessment. And since then, nothing has really been added to this as well.
So if I understand correctly, if SNWA does something with the sewer plant, then we're hoping that is 100% on their cost. And that would be started by 23, would it not?
I'm not sure when that would be started, but I'm pretty sure they would be covering the cost of that.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that there isn't something that because since we haven't squared it away, whether we have to match certain dollars or something like that, or say certain part of it's our project or not, depending on how it works out. So there could be something in 23 if something falls out that way.
Correct, and that is actually handled, and that doesn't have to be in the CIP. If all of a sudden we got that grant, they would do a budget amendment and accept that grant,
right,
and add the project.
And then but if we had to do any funds, then that would be that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question on the effluent splitter box improvements. Initially, last year, when we just looked at the budget, they had another $340,000 budgeted in fiscal year 26, and I don't see that on this one. We've only got a total of 70,000 budgeted for that.
I think that actually got moved out. I'll look, and if it got moved out to 27, I'll make sure to add it in 27, because I think it got pushed out. But what I'll do is I'll look and make sure to pull in if that number's in 27. I apologize, I should have already done that.
That's okay. $340,000.
So Dan or Howard, do you see anything in here? This is your expertise, to see if there's anything that you would.
My only other question is, on the electric, we raised a lot of the budget due to the expected just inflation, and we haven't done any here for the water and the sewer. Do we need to?
Well, the one thing I'll speak up for was the electrical. They've sort of been covering those, been covered over for the last 2 years. This one was part of a brand new study that should have incorporated some of that, but I'm sorry, I'm speaking for the city, so.
I'll add just in my experience, currently, we have seen an increase in lead times and a little bit of prices, but luckily we're low pressure, low temperature. Usually our materials are easier to get and are more stable in prices, so I wouldn't anticipate a large spike.
The delivery times are getting pushed out by everybody, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we ready to move on to landfill?
Yes.
I have no projects for landfill at this point. That doesn't mean we don't have open projects. We just don't have any funding request for landfill.
Okay, so, but we are talking about ongoing today. We did include that in our agenda, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I just quickly on the landfill, on the ongoing, I'm still, okay, we've got, so the revised budget is the expansion, the phasing, land expansion phasing, so there's 196 still budgeted for this 22, 60,000, and then perimeter fence and road design. Now the road, so there was talk that the road would be done by the vendor, but I'm sure the fencing is not gonna be covered by the vendor, so we're not closing that fencing and road design and just turning that over to them. Is that?
If they come in and complete it, and once it's complete, and then we complete what we're gonna complete, then this will be closed, and the amount that we don't use will stay in the landfill fund to be able to use for different capital.
Okay, but right now we're anticipating, so what we're looking at, the revised budget of, if I'm understanding, almost basically $700,000, what is anticipated to be needed for this year or possibly ongoing.
Okay.
So we're not planning it in the future, but it could go farther on beyond 22.
Okay, so right now, and I'm sorry if I didn't understand what you were saying, right now the perimeter fencing and road design has an available amount of 431.
I'm talking about all of landfill. So if you go right below that, you've got basically.
I have 582.
Okay, I'm looking at 831. Am I looking at the one that's, not the one that was handed out today?
Yeah, that's the one I was handed out today.
Okay, I must have done the wrong one then. So, okay, so, but that, so, where did I miss the one from today? I guess I pulled too much out.
It should have 831 at the top, projects year to date.
Compared to 916 or 831? That's what I thought I was looking at. Okay, so, yes, the same one. So, what am I missing? The total landfill capital is 699, 660.
That was the revised budget, and then there's encumbrances of 117,530, which part of that is the landfill expansion encumbrance. So the available budget is 582,135 if you add all three of them together.
Okay, there's still too much, okay. I'm done. No, that's.
Okay,
done.
so if the perimeter fencing, if that project, if the vendor comes in and does part of that project, then when we do our portion, then we'll adjust and we'll close it out. That doesn't mean that entire amount would be spent. And you'll see it on the report.
Okay, then the last question I just have is whether the fencing or the expansion is gonna go past this year. Do you expect it to go past this year? So it's not on the 5-year plan because there's no money, I understand that. But do we expect it to go longer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably will, more than likely.
Okay. Okay, I guess we'll just see how things work then. Thank you.
So UL 151 landfill expansion, we've got 91,000 left in that. Is that project essentially done?
No, that's an on. No.
And then the next one is the landfill expansion phasing plan. And there's been nothing spent on that. So is that something we're doing?
Yes.
Yes, we are doing it. Like some of the things with the landfill, like right now, we got like a lot of permitting that we have to do with air quality and everything before they can get started actually doing the design for the fencing and finishing it up and everything. But those projects are definitely being worked on, and we will be completing those. But like to Larry's question, they might not be finished in FY22.
Again, and that's no problem, that, I understand, I guess it's just when you had, especially the large amount for fence, was that large budget because the fence was gonna be that expensive or because it was gonna be done over several years. So it wasn't that I was trying to say we weren't getting it done, but just saying, was it planned for a longer period, is what I was trying to understand. And we'll talk about it, I guess, as we go on further.
And that is all I have.
Okay, well, again, apologize for some of the frustration and stuff. We're just trying to, this is different than it had been. And there's there's still some instances with definitions and what we understand and how the city does it. And we're still trying to learn. So, nothing personal, definitely nothing personal on anybody's side. Greatly appreciate everybody's time, appreciate all the effort you're putting in. And so it's a matter of trying to we're just trying to help. So we're not trying to demand, we're not trying to say you have to do it this way. We've just looked at some of the years, some of the numbers and going, this doesn't quite seem right. So just so we're all on the same page, we're just trying to help. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Any comments from anybody else?
I do.
Go ahead.
The city council workshop is going to be reviewing this 5-year plan on the October 6th.
They're going to be reviewing the entire the citywide CIP,
but
and this will be part of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would suggest anyone who has any input that we attend, and because the plan after what we've discussed here is what's going to be put to
correct
council. So I think if we have any input, we should go to that meeting.
Unfortunately, I won't be here for that, but I appreciate if anybody can attend, because it's almost as much to see what their input is, because it's their going forward, and then we will have input on so our next agenda item here now will sort of go over how we want to make sure we get our input in November, if I understand correctly. But thank you, Eileen, that is correct. Anybody can go to get it. Thank you. So we'll go to agenda item 3, and for possible action, a discussion and direction regarding potential agenda items for upcoming utility advisory committee meetings. So I guess what we've been discussing is trying to keep, and I did not bring it with me, I apologize. I think we have a general, do you have to have the old agenda, Josh?
From last meeting?
Yes.
Yes, I have it.
I think we got most of it down. I think we were trying to keep a general idea. So if we start there, then anybody else has, and then we'll talk a little bit about a few other things. But I think in that way we can talk at the general idea of what we're, I think, trying to go forward with. So as he's looking for it, we know that we would have the minutes would be a normal aspect. One of the ones we did have was the goals. So maybe I can ask about that to see what everybody. Thank you. Okay. So thanks, Eileen. So the goals was the number 2 agenda item, and it might not be bad to keep that way to sort of see, I guess, where we're going, what we're currently working on that month, and how we need to keep going forward. Is that something people want to keep on the agenda? We could just make it a 15-minute item or less, or maybe a little more, depending on if we find something. So does that sound reasonable?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think so. Especially we're going to get those timelines updated, and we need to see that.
Okay, sounds good. Then we definitely need the update. Okay, now the question is do we need to put anything? Okay, Carol left and we read before. Do we need to put anything different on the ongoing capital programs? I guess the one thing we might want is a report or interaction with council or something like that. We do need to be able to talk about emergency purchase or the transformer purchase. We have to do something like that. So we might as well put that up front.
Do we know what that involves? Is there a procedure for that, or are you guys familiar with any procedure, or how do we go about getting that done, I guess, is the question I have.
I'm sure there is, but
Right, what is the procedure, I guess? Maybe we need the rules on what governs that, or some way to go about that, so we're all familiar with how that could be done.
Okay, do you have a suggestion on how the agenda items should be written to make sure we get what we need, or?
Not, I could think of something, but I would just say we ask for the emergency funding procedures.
What, that's what we're talking about now, yeah. Thank you very much, Holly, appreciate it. That's good.
As far as the agenda item for the emergency purchase, I can figure that out and send it to you guys with the wording for it, so.
Okay, so would we want that separate from the capital? Probably would be safer to have it separate, right?
I would say that would be a separate agenda item.
Yeah.
Okay, so would we say emergency procedure, and then, but we want to make sure we talk about the transformer so we can,
Right, we're basically just funding, probably should say something like Greg's been saying.
Yeah, like we don't have to talk about the wording now. I'll figure that out and
But
shoot it to you guys.
We just want to get that, as Greg's been saying, we want to get that purchased. And what options do we have? Is it emergency? Is it just through some other funding method? You know, what methods are available to us, I guess is what I'd like to know.
so just whatever, Josh, that we can freely talk about.
Yeah,
it,
for
so-
sure.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay, so that's the goals, and then 3 would be the emergency. Okay, then 4. So do we want to do ongoing and capital together, or do we need to put that separate? Do you know, Josh, do you have a preference?
It's you guys' preference. I think we did it successfully today where we talked about ongoing and 5-year. It just depends on how you guys want to do it. You want to talk about them in different items, or I will put that on you guys.
I think it's okay to say ongoing, because we can just shift, and we can go actually sort of go back and forth a little bit. So does anybody have a preference? Okay, I just,
Yeah, I think I like
So
it.
I would just have it the same item as we have today.
that'd be great. Okay, so ongoing and 5. Okay, then we have the electrical integrated resource plan. And so just so I guess to just be discussion. So whatever new information the city has, but we're not necessarily asking for, but we definitely want to be able to discuss it.
Is that something you guys want on the next meeting agenda? Because I'm not sure we'll have any updates regarding that. Scott Krantz, he's gonna come give you guys a presentation on that, I believe, maybe December or November. So until then, like Keegan and I really don't have any updates on that.
I guess I'd like to have it on there just so we can discuss it if need be. If we don't discuss it, then it's a 5 or 5, well, it's just, we go on and say nobody has any discussion.
Okay, that's fine.
Does that sound reasonable to the committee? Okay, so I'm gonna put we have a pre-meeting plan with Keegan, and we can just, so we're not asking for any extra burden for the city to come up with something. We're just saying we want to have the freedom to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we know when Scott Krantz is going to speak?
It's gonna be sometime in November, December. I don't have an exact
Okay,
date right now.
because we're talking about the November's agenda.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not sure when his
So-
availability is. I remember Keegan said it would be sometime in November or December.
Okay.
But I can get you a firm answer. I just don't remember when he was gonna be available to do it.
Okay.
We don't know when it's going to be, but we can put it as an item of discussion, and if it doesn't occur, we just go over it. We pass it. But if we don't have it in there, we can't talk to him or talk about it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just saying I don't know if we want to talk about it without him because we don't have any updates. That's all I was saying.
Sorry. I think
I was summoned.
oh, no, I think we got it covered. I apologize.
Okay, so I'm good?
Sorry, thank you, sorry. I'm always getting myself in trouble, what can I say? I know. So discussion of regarding water conservation goals and I think, should we just put that as a discussion of water and energy? We still probably need to, if we come up with something for energy, we have it. So maybe just add energy to that.
Why don't we just say it like this, discussion of energy conservation goals?
Well, is water conservation considered energy?
If you run it through a generator, it is.
Unless you want to just say conservation goals, then that covers.
Yeah, right, just conservation.
Yes, okay, Josh, let's just go conservation goals. That way just in case.
I think we should identify water and electric just to be more specific for the public.
Is what they're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do that if we need, but we just need to, if something else comes up, are we pinned in though?
Like what?
I'm really interested in what's been coming up, what Greg's been talking about with the renewable energy. It really makes, you get all this information through TV and other services about how great of a thing it is, and it doesn't sound like it's that great of a thing because of demand on the systems when that all drops off. So I'd like to learn a lot more about that myself.
I think that's something that Scott Kranz is going to discuss.
Yeah. Because, I'm kind of, I don't believe everything I hear on the TV, but it just, what's been discussed here starting to make a lot of sense to me, and I want to hear more about it, so.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we just say electric and water because we can talk about, if we talk about the IRP and conservation, either subject would be able to talk about the renewables. So we can decide which agenda item that fits under best. But if you can talk about it, Greg, maybe we can do something next time to have a little installment of 15, 20 minutes or something. So it'd be on our side, not the city side.
Hey, Ned, I can bring my latest purchase back up here and show everybody. I got that solar powered trailer for 50 amps at 240 volts, so it'll power a house on solar panels.
Be interesting to put in the parking lot if anybody's interested. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's some of the things, I guess, going in the future. That's sort of the parallel things. So I guess to make it clear, a lot of the agenda items, the committee is just being able to freely talk about it, but not burden the city with a lot of extra work to prepare for all these agenda items. So there we got conservation. And then I guess 7, then we'll do 7. But do we need, before we do this, the discussion of future items, is there anything else for November that we need? Is there anything specifically? So November, our key, under the goal and under our timeline, I believe, is still the 5-year plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would definitely say so, because Carol wants to get that tentatively approved by December from council, so.
Now, the one thing I guess that is coming up though, so again, talking November, we're about the end of the year, is we have the end of the year audit results. And so is that something we want to put on the agenda to see if it's ready? And then we can start talking about it and then push it more into December for more details?
If that's something you want to talk about, we can add it to the agenda. I'm not sure when that concludes, but if you want to add it to the agenda, we can.
Was that it? So that's going to make us 8. So if we put 7 as the financial, well, I guess what, discuss end of the year audit?
Yeah, maybe impact on the impact on the rate study.
Or can we,
because of revenues and expenses?
Or do we just say financial discussion? Would that be too broad?
That's pretty broad.
Okay, I'm sorry, so then repeat yours then, I'm sorry.
I just said how, from the audited financials, the revenues and expenses, and how that may impact the rate study, the next rate study. Did you guys, I'm assuming you're gonna update that, the Raftillis worksheet?
The rate model, so.
Yeah, the rate model, yeah.
Once we have the finals, but I'm not
Okay.
sure, like I said, I don't know when that's gonna conclude.
Well, last year was November, but.
Yeah,
I thought, yeah.
but
So
I'm
is
not
it
sure,
in
I'm not sure
November
if it'll
or
be
it was
done before our
October?
meeting.
I don't know how they're coming along on that audit. I haven't talked
Yeah,
to
neither
them.
do I, so that's why.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that at our pre-meeting. And then if it's available, we'll put it on the agenda. If it's not, then that way you'll understand why it's not.
Okay.
So right now we'll put in, so if you could just put that as a placeholder, so it would be the finance audit related to rate study and then whatever. But that's great. Because that's the next thing we're gonna have to start doing is putting the rate study on the agenda and going forward with that. So, but I guess we can start it. And if they're ready, we'll put it. If not, we'll make sure it's December, no later than January. We start using that again. So that takes us into future items. And then, so 8 would be our normal future agenda. So that's just for November, yes. And so we'll have to just keep moving through them. Holly, do we have anybody so we are set for November 3rd, correct? So I guess the next question, can I ask about time? I can work on the agenda items, right? Can I ask about the time? Yes. Okay, so do we start at 1 o'clock? And is there anybody behind us? Do you have the calendar? Okay, so do we start at 1 or do we start at 3? What does everybody want to do? I guess we can vote on this one. This one has the ability to do it. And so I guess if you want me to do it, I put a motion for 1 o'clock on November 3rd. So who would like to start at 1 o'clock on November 3rd? Okay, fine, that's a motion, so I need to get somebody.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Okay, so thank you. So we'll start with 1 o'clock, and then we'll just see how that goes forward. Thank you, Greg. Okay, for future, just so we put it on get everybody in our thought process, is there anything that we want to start thinking about that we either want to see in December, January, or even February? Dan?
I don't know if this would be useful, but I would really like an agenda item where the city would tell us how we can help. I mean, there's a lot of experience up here and a lot of useful information. I'm wondering if they have any requests of us that we can help out with. Would that be a regular check-in? Could that be an item that we just ask, is there anything we can do to help?
Josh, is that something we can do? Or you can do?
I can't speak for everybody, but I think we usually have enough agenda items. If anything, if we need any help from you guys, we got no problem letting you guys know outside of an official meeting. I don't think we need an official item for that. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what Keegan or anybody else might think.
Is there anything else, Dan? Okay, but thank you. That's that thing we're still learning, is trying to figure out what we need on the agenda and what we don't. So it's always good to ask. Anybody else for future aspects? I guess that's one thing we can look at too in goals, is make sure we're not missing anything. But for right now, anybody else got anything? Okay, so we have a full agenda for November, and then we will be talking with Keegan as a pre-meeting, Eileen and I. So if we come up with anything, and see, we're meeting on the 26th, so there won't be a whole lot of time to get, well, there'll be 27th, we can get an agenda item out to everybody, and if there's any concerns, then you will have a chance to, so if we find something or see that there's a timeline that needs to be looked at closer, then that might change some of this. Okay, any other comments related to this agenda item? Okay, so then I will go to, I guess we'll go to the final public comment period. And I'll just read through this again to make sure. So each person has up to 5 minutes to speak at the discretion of the chair. Comments made during the public comment period of the agenda may be on any subject. All remarks shall be addressed to the committee as a whole, not to any individual member of the committee or of the audience or of the city staff. There shall be no personal attacks against the chair, members of the utility committee, the chair, the city staff, or any other individual. No person other than the members of the UAC and the persons who has the floor shall be permitted to enter into any discussion, either directly or through the member of the utility advisory committee. without the permission of the chair or presiding officer. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been specifically included on an agenda as an item upon which action may be taken. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll do the same thing. We'll open it up on the phone first, please. So again, just the phone number is 702-589-9629. Okay, one more time, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Okay, so we'll close the phone down, and was there anything written for the last part? Anything sent in, I should say?
I didn't receive anything.
Okay, anybody in the audience that would like to talk? Okay, so seeing that there's nobody that, no public comment, then I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimously passed, so we are shutting down at 3:39, so closing out. Thank you very much for everybody. Appreciate everybody's input.